It almost seemed like everyone knew everyone on the coast, and we all used to go out on the same nights and see the same DJs at the same venue, and we're all on the same page. There, you don't have that camaraderie. You don't have that funky house movement anymore.
Surfers' paradise at the turn of the millennium, a tourist mecca and vibrant party scene. Beneath all the glitz and glamour, there was a paradigm shift occurring in the local musical culture. The global house music movement had begun transforming the music and nightclubs into a new scene. In the years to follow, the underground sound became popular amongst the masses. The scene was thriving and positive. There were a handful of DJs who pushed the scene and music to new heights.
House music to me was fun.
To me, house music is a tempo, is a recreation of different styles of music.
I think house music, this is a cliche, but it's a feeling.
To generally say it, to me house was something which was more of a family feel. It sort of got people together.
It really comes from gay disco clubs like the Warehouse in Chicago or Paradise Garage in New York. It's an attitude, but it has to have soul, it has to have spirit. It's really like urban poetry in a sense.
What house music is to me is a means of connecting with a newer generation.
I found house music was just so happy and uplifting and soulful, and it had meaning behind it. It had real passion.
Yeah, house music to me, I guess, is just another avenue of nurturing the styles of the old.
About people going out doing the same thing, everyone looks around, you're dancing around in a room, you just look around, it's like, yeah.
First off is memories, awesome, happy memories.
I came here like late 98, and for the next 4 or 5 years, I suppose, there was a decent amount of house, but it never was the primary sound of the Gold Coast.
I guess everyone kind of doubted it would happen, but it did.
House at the Gold Coast, to me, it had pockets of it.
Countless nights out listening to house music.
It was a natural progression, I think.
Berlin Lounge Bar, Don Nardi, Ben Cooper, Jacob, these are the guys that predominantly for the Gold Coast really pushed house music.
So definitely Ben Cooper, James Canning, Don Nardi, Give. They're those 4 guys, I think, definitely one way or another had major influence on the Gold Coast.
Everyone that was, Don, myself, James, we all had our own sort of style. Any art that moves a bit further forward always creates its own little group, I guess.
There is an underground scene. There's always been an underground scene on the coast, thanks to house music, because I think it was probably the original one. The funky house especially was the one that sort of kicked off the whole mentality on the coast, where the locals are, we can do something special here,
Gold Coast has always had a good underground scene, admittedly smaller perhaps than Brisbane, but very valid. I mean, days of the Berlin Bar, for example, that place used to kick.
If there was a venue that resonated the entire house scene during its golden years, it was the infamous Berlin Bar. New music, fashion, culture, fun, it was all there in this small club.
It's a bit of a freak accident, actually.
The way you got into Berlin was perfect. You couldn't have asked for a better way to get into a nightclub. Little alley, hardly any lights, little side door, no fanfare, no massive shining neon lights now. There's no big billboards. Didn't need that. It was almost as like only the locals knew about it.
It was a combination of like-minded people, needing, being starved, like begging for something else, something different.
If you blinked, you would have missed the entrance, And I think that's what kept it so cool for so long as well. You didn't get the blow-ins that are there just to have 17 tequila shots, cause trouble and leave. You had people that respected each other that were there every week.
I used to play really, really deep early on in the night, and a lot of the bogans, the rednecks that would come in off the street, hated it. And that was my way of filtering out all the crap, which kind of always kept the room pure. And that was my little sterilization set at the beginning of the night. Ironically, I actually think that is the reason why it actually worked, because it was the real deal. The roots and the foundation of what the night was built on the right people and the people that were there for the right reasons.
Oh man, I remember walking into Berlin the first time and it was almost like stepping into a culture. If you could step into a culture, that would have been Berlin. And it was when you walk through those doors, it was like walking into a different world. It was great, and it was cool without trying to be cool, you know? Popular, but for the right reasons, you know.
Having these amazing international guys come in and just play a completely different flavour and just did their thing with it. It was just, they really are like witch doctors from another land. Kenny Dope would come in, and Kenny was amazing. He'd bring in his African remixes of Fela Kuti, and then he'd be doing, you know, hip hop stuff, and he'd just mash it all up. It was just incredible, you know, the tribal stuff and the house and the old school, you know, breaks, and he just knew how to work it in together. Like, that was unique. No one did that. And when Louis came, Louis Vega, when he came, he could see the tradition of house just dripping out of everything he did.
Great music, great venue. I mean, if you walked in there and actually had a look at the venue, it was pretty crappy. You know, there was nothing polished about it. Things were falling apart, everything was dirty, all that, but it just fitted in perfectly, you know.
Culture, it's like a fungus. You just let it fester. You let it sit there, and it grows, and it does what it has to do, and it grows in its own way. And I think one of the reasons that people like coming to Berlin, because they could be themselves, and they could they found a little sanctuary. It was very different. It's dramatic contrast what was happening in those two little stories that were called Berlin, as opposed to what was happening on the street or in the other venues.
A big part of the success of Berlin was, I guess, the timing of when it was open. It was perfect for that sort of culture. It was people looking for a place where they could belong, and the music was cool, and they didn't have to be pretentious or anything like that, which is the coast is famous for, you know. And here was Berlin Bar.
After 4 or 5 years, any club, you know, you're lucky to get that long out of it. It's just synchronicity, I suppose. And that's why I think it worked. That's probably the essence of what the club was. And the people were as important as the music.
I remember the last night that it was open, and it was a lot of sad people there, just literally hands up in the air. Well, what do we do now? What do we do now? So yeah, it was like stepping into a little house music paradise.
The closing of its doors signified more than the end of a nightclub. It was the beginning of the end of an era. House music's popularity and appeal were on the demise. What happened to house?
The future of house is to get that level of enjoyment and that level of feeling back. It's just going to go back down underground for a little while.
I mean, there's that old saying, yeah, evolve or die, but how do you evolve something that was almost perfect and pure and beautiful? You know, like you can't evolve house music. House music's house.
It's transformed. It's just evolved. It hasn't gone anywhere.
It's not just about DJing, it's just about culture, it's just about people. And the coast has changed a lot.
For house to survive, I guess, unfortunately these days it has to be picked up by major labels and then be turned into something profitable.
If anything, house music now is stronger. If you were to look at it as house music and all of its subgenres, house music now is stronger than it's ever been.
All of those bygone club sounds, there's always going to be people there that support it and want to hear it. But as far as it being what it was, I would say definitely not. You know, it's not going to happen again.
Today, it's just a different subgenre within house music's time to shine, if you know what I mean. It will evolve.
Especially on the Gold Coast, because it's not, you know, people are lulled into a sort of comfortable follow along with whatever's going on. Because that sort of place, you know, it's the Gold Coast, it's you know, surf's paradise.